it doesn't.
Do you remember this performer?
Listen.
Do you remember this hit song? May not remember either, but it is because of this record and this performer that Vee-Jay Records received the contract. Gary, Indiana, 1953. Vivian Carter and her husband, James C. Bracken, decided to create their own label. They utilized the initials of their first names to name their new company. With Gary, Indiana being a thriving scene of black artists, Vee-Jay Records became one of the first major black labels in the United States. The label found initial success with blues and jazz records. The early 1960s saw success with R&B and rock and roll. Setting up headquarters in Chicago, the company looked to be on a roll. However, sales data seemed to indicate that rock and roll was in trouble. While rock and roll sales were initially good, numbers were trending downwards. Statistics showed that the current generation did not have enough spending power to continuously support rock and roll music. Previous generations had relied upon their parents in order to make purchases during their teen years. It was not anticipated that the teens of the early 1960s could sustain rock and roll. Soundtracks, show tunes, and the new fad of easy listening looked to be the new big seller. Numbers would seem to indicate that Vee-Jay Records would need to go in a new direction. In the early 1960s, there was a countercultural movement happening in Britain. While the primary music market was trying to copy what was popular in the United States, which was relatively dull, there was a new rock and roll presence happening within the British youth. The rock and roll subculture in Britain was brash, youthful, and energetic. Vee-Jay Records was looking for new hot music to bring to the United States. Weary of rock and roll's fading numbers, Vee-Jay Records decided to turn to Frank Ifield and his popular tune in Britain, I Will Remember You. Vee-Jay secured the U.S. rights to the song I Will Remember You, and released the song in the United States to popular airplay. It was a #1 hit on the easy listening charts, and it placed #5 on the popular charts. Along with the rights to this record, they also received the rights to a small band that was not finding success in distribution in the United States up until this point. The throw-in in this contract happened to be the Beatles. Parlophone, the British company that had the rights to the Beatles in England, saw lots of success with the Beatles' early albums. However, their corporate sibling in the United States, Capitol, did not see the Beatles as a solid potential for release.